All right, all right. Welcome back to another episode of the Masterful Conversations podcast, where we talk about leadership from the men who have served or are currently serving as worshipful master in a regular lodge of free and accepted Masons. I am Brother Matthew Wagstaff, a proud past master of Eureka Lodge number 36 out of Rochester, New York. We're currently serving as my worshipful master is Brother Jermaine Myers, and I'm with.
I am Brother Mark Alexander, proud past master of Sons of Kings Lodge number 123 out of Brooklyn, New York, with serving in Oriental Chair. My lodge is Brother Kevin Parker.
We both hail from the most worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of the state of New York. We're currently serving as our Grand Master is most worshipful Darren M. Morton. All right, we have an esteemed guest from outside of the New York jurisdiction today. We heard the feedback. Brothers were asking, can we get some more brothers from outside of New York? Some more, mix it up a little bit. So, Pastor Master Alexander was able to find our esteemed guest today. Before we introduce him, Mark, please share the disclaimer.
The views and opinions of the show are our own and not the expressive views and opinion of our lodges or grand lodges. This show is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only. If you have any questions, please consult the proper office in your prospective jurisdiction.
Absolutely, absolutely. Also, before we get into the episode, before we get into introductions, quick announcements.
Yes, today is a special day within the Scottish Rite of Prince Hall. It is the 144th anniversary of the United Supreme Council of the Northern Jurisdiction of Prince Hall affiliated. Congratulations to another year to me and Matt's Supreme Council. May you continue to grow and get better and serve the community. And I'm looking forward to session in a couple of weeks. So
Congratulations. Yes, yes. May the history and the legacy continue for sure. For sure. All right. So we have with us today past master Akoni Vaughans Sr. out of Mount Olive Lodge, number 25 of the most worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Maryland. Um, Past Master Vaughans served as worshipful master for two terms from 2019 to 2021 of Samuel J. Ennis Lodge, number 106 of the most worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Maryland. Past Master Vaughans is a past commander in chief of Hiram Consistory number 2 of the Ancient Accepted Scottish Rite. He is currently a busy man with three jobs right now in the craft. He is the excellent high priest of Keystone Chapter number 10 of the Holy Royal Archmasons. He is the thrice illustrious master of Omega Council number 2, the Royal and Select Masters. And he is the illustrious potentate of Al Nas Temple number 255 of the ancient Egyptian Arabic Order of the Nobles of Mystic Shrine.
and you
Busy
can't
man, busy
forget
man.
something else, Matt. He's also the CCFC for the most
Oh,
worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge in Maryland.
Grand Lodge officer, busy, 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 busy.
Yeah,
Past Master Vaughn's also a life member of the Phylaxis Society, and he has received the last and final 33rd degree of the Ancient Accepted Scottish Rite. Welcome to the Masterful Conversations podcast, Past Master Vaughn's.
thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Good evening, brothers. I'm glad to be here. It's a privilege and an honor. Um, I, I, I count it not robbery that we take these moments to have camaraderie and fellowship amongst each other, to take these times to converse about topics and make it relatable to the constituency of Prince Hall Masonry. Um, they need to see more of us doing things like this, so this is good, and I thank you for reaching out. Glad to be here. Thank you.
Yeah.
Definitely happy to have you.
Also, let me just add on and clarify a couple of things before we go on. CCFC, chairman of correspondence for foreign correspondence. So it's basically the way I always word it is like the State Department for the Grand Lodge.
Mm,
So he's like in charge of that. That's the way I word that. And
That is true.
yeah, the Flaxus Society is like a research society for Prince Hall Masons. So that's what that is.
Mhm.
So just want to add those two things. So any brothers, could always join that for Laxus Society. You'll learn a lot from that. They have a magazine that comes out, I believe, quarterly. And it's only like $35 a month. it's definitely worth it. So join and learn and continue to get that light.
For sure, for
Yeah.
sure. As brothers are traveling, make sure you hit up your CCFC too. Make sure everything is on the up and up. Legit, if you're gonna be traveling as a lodge, as a body, what's that? I think what's the number? What, three or more or
Oh,
five?
that's in our jurisdiction. I don't know what his jurisdiction
3 or
does, but
more.
yeah, yeah,
3
yeah,
or more.
same thing, three or
Yeah,
more.
yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So
There's the cardinal.
if you rolling in a group, just make sure you hit your CCFC up and get everything in proper order.
That's
Govern
right.
yourselves
Yeah,
accordingly, brothers.
I'm currently
That's
the
right.
vice CCFC for New York.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
That's what's up.
Hmm.
That's what's up. That's what's
Absolutely.
up.
So let's get into the conversation today, Past Master Vaughans. Would love to hear you just share a little bit about your journey. Give us a little background when you were raised in the craft. Even a little bit about how you got into masonry to begin with. So a little bit of background about your journey into masonry, when you were raised, and then we can dive into your journey to the east.
All right, cool. Thank you. Well, first let me give my honors to the Honorable um Kevin L. Barney Jr., the Most Worshipful Grand Master for the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Maryland and its jurisdictions incorporated. I do take it not robbery to be here again today. I started, shoot, 2010. Yeah, yeah, 2010 is when I really got into the esoteric knowledge of not just masonry as a whole, but the knowledge of what we see today and what we have continued to start learning that has been in the history books for some time.
Mm,
I started to dive well and deep into some of those books, trying to get knowledge of Kemetic spirituality, alchemy, things like that, numerology. And I started to kind of dive into some of those subjects, and it kind of led me to what Freemasonry, the beginnings and the teachings and the histories of Freemasonry. Um, and over the course of time, I just began to find an interest. So when I came in masonry in about 2016, as an entered apprentice, and I applied to Samuel J. Ennis, I sent my petition in and things like that, and I was investigated the old school way, where they came to my house and they did the front facing interview. They interviewed my wife at the time. They interviewed my neighbors. It was one of
mm,
those things where it was a very classic way, which what I was used to when we say investigate candidate.
Hmm.
And the voucher had to be someone of a reputable state that could actually speak on my behalf. One of those things that has become a little bit of a lost art, unfortunately, over time. But it gave me a sense of gratitude and appreciation for the process. Um, Coming into the craft at 2016, I was young, I was impetuous, I was eager to do a lot. But as everyone knows, it's a good thing to kind of come in and learn and absorb silently, because I just wanted to do a whole lot and I didn't know enough to do a whole lot. So,
Hmm.
but it was good because we were a young lodge, and I say young in the sense of a lot of the transition had happened, and it was a lot of young guys. It was myself and four other gentlemen. We were the Furious Five, and we came in there and we got all the way up to the Master Mason degree, and we had to give the obligation. It was no, one day conferral type thing where we did like a mass raise or anything like that. We had to really, really give the charge and the obligation for these degree works and actually teach some of the stuff that we were learning, to show that we were actually absorbing that knowledge, which was good. And I don't take that for granted. Um, After about 2016, I did kind of like coast for a little bit. I started in as the junior deacon. They threw me in right in there in the mix. I didn't get to start at a steward level or try to sit on the sidelines. I was immediately started to work. Went from junior deacon to senior deacon, and then immediately to the senior warden seat because
mm,
of some of the transition of some of the guys that was going on in the lodge. Um, I was forced into kind of the Lodge of Instruction at that time, the James A. Handy Lodge of Instruction, is that what we officially call it in the jurisdiction of Maryland. Did that for about a year and a half, and then I came out and was nominated as the Worshipful Master in 2019. Subsequently, that year, I think, as we all know, January, February, COVID happened. So I was my first year of being a worshipful master was the first 2 months I was able to open, was able to meet. And then by March, April timeframe, we were all shut down until probably earlier that following year. So it was tough. It was tough. We were still doing virtual meetings. I was still trying to visit some of the sick and the shut in. We were still, doing what little we could do with limited contact at the time. But most of it was still trying to maintain the business of the lodge, which was good. It was a learning experience because we still had to keep the business of the lodge moving, even though we were limited to how we could meet and interact with each other. In about 2021, things started to pick up a little bit, got back busy. We started to meet up again with the district level and things like that. State started to come back together. And then we started to reestablish. And then so that latter part where the steam kind of picked up. So we started doing some more fundraising and things like that. And then we started to get, so my experience was a little bit of a mixed bag of transition, trying to deal with the world ever changing, but also trying to deal with learning masonry at the same time, and also dealing with a very mixed bag of a lodge of young guys just coming in, but older guys that had been in the lodge for such a long time. So, and trying to lead that particular group at my age, it wasn't a bad thing, but it was something that pushed me, and so I was heavy in the books. It was one of those things where I couldn't let up. COVID was one of those things where I had established a library. I got more books and more books than and Mark can tell you, when we started collaborating and we got in there and started, we were reaching out to people from here to Alaska, and we just started chatting because we were inside the house. It was like, what else are we going to do? And had it not been for that camaraderie and meeting people across the nation, as far as Alaska and Hawaii, we created that group called the Esoteric Lighthouse. And that was truly a godsend because I met a lot of great guys who poured into me. And I mean, in between the Facebook groups and all the chatter that was going on at the time, and it was fun because we were having Masonic, mental decathlons, going back and forth, throwing out concepts and different things and teachings at each other. But it was great because some people who didn't know much got propelled from like 0 to 100 instantly, and some people that knew a lot, they learned something that they didn't know before. And so we stretched and we pushed the envelope. We pushed beyond the veil, and it established something that was so great. That Esoteric Lighthouse group, we established that podcast and that group, and it was that first call. We just had, I think we had like 40 brothers on that call. It had to be like 20 or 30 guys, and we was just talking about great topics that you normally wouldn't talk about in the lodge. You wouldn't get that. And it was great because these are the things that most guys are looking for. They're looking for that hidden secret, that piece of information that you normally wouldn't have gotten from somewhere else, to kind of help open their eyes to a different perspective of the world around them. And having that diversity of thought was so great. I mean, we had some guys dropping some whammies on us, and it was great. It was a great thing. We even, and I tell this because it became such a competition. We got almost aggressive to almost point where I got kicked out of Facebook groups because people didn't like the stuff we were talking about. And it was fine. I didn't take offense to it. It was cool. I mean, that's just the nature and you can see the passion behind us as being Masons. It's like, yeah, but we stretched it. We pushed the envelope, and that was good. And so we had an episode, for instance, we had an episode on Two Ball King, and everybody, when we put it out there, people were talking about violating, the obligation and all that good stuff. But we were talking about the person who is Two Ball King. What is that? What is the history of the word of Two Ball King? And where does that come from? We were talking about the artificer of brass, and we're talking about how through time this particular individual was taken, but was it an individual or was it actually a group of people from Tubal? And then we got into the fact that these people actually were calling themselves Tubal and Cain because they believed that they were from the heritage of Cain and Abel around that time. And then they had discovered fire, and they were blacksmiths, and they had learned how to forge and create from that fire. And then that's where we got alchemy from. So then we begin to learn that this particular entity was so great back then, people were going to begin to worship that entity because it created things for people. You got to think about it now. If you can create fire and you can create metal, so you can create house, you can create heat in your house, you can create wheels and metal and shields and swords. So now you're not just creating something to protect, you're creating something to war with, you're creating something to farm with. So it is something that if it was not, technology would not have advanced as it is today. So that's when Tubal King became such an entity within itself, or a group of people who were skilled in that craft of alchemy. And they knew how to take something and make more from it. So we examined that. And I mean, we went deep down the
Yeah.
rabbit holes, and it was great. It was an eye opener, and it wasn't nothing revealing. We didn't go anything that came across, or violated our obligations. What
Yeah.
we did was we threw something out there to whet the palate, to cause you to think and say, "Ooh, should we really be talking about this? Is this something we really should be?" And then, but at the same time, is it something that maybe I need to learn, and it's probably something I haven't really thought about. I need to turn the head on it a little bit. So, that experience alone is what melded us and molded us together as brothers. It's a good bond, and we still talk together to this day. Like I said, some of us have kind of spanned out. Some of the panelists have grown in their own regard. They're now, working at the Ancient Accepted Scottish Rite level, at higher levels in the Supreme Council.
Hmm.
Some of them are district deputy grand masters now. I mean, when we started, we were just worshipful masters, just chatting about this stuff,
Exactly.
and now you talk to most of us, we're either in the grand line or we're some grand body doing something now. And it's great to see that we're kind of growing together and still in the craft and helping each other out.
Yeah.
So, my journey has been something that I would never take for granted, and I would never want to do it again. It was great, man. It was awesome. And when I say do it again, I mean I don't think I can experience the same way the same time. It was awesome. It's awesome. And it's still great. I have so much more to learn and go. As you guys have probably heard, all the positions that I've taken is not by my own doing. It was just happenstance from a lot of things that I'm in, and it was just the nature of the situation, and God willing, between my family and myself, they give me a lot of grace to do what I do today. So that's
No,
pretty
I
much.
appreciate it. Definitely appreciate that. So I got a couple of just sort of background questions too. One, just real quickly, the Esoteric Lighthouse, was that a lodge sort of initiative, or is that something that you kind of did with other worshipful masters in the area? So you, as worshipful master during COVID, created this platform with other members of the craft outside of your lodge,
Nah, it was just
or
like a bunch of guys online, and we said, let's
okay,
create a podcast because
okay,
we didn't see anything except for the Prince Hall Think Tank and
yeah,
um the other podcast,
The
the
Masonic
Winding
Round Table
Stairs,
says, okay.
yeah. So
and
what was
and the
the
Masonic Roundtable and things like
Hmm.
that. Huh?
got you. So what was anything? Did you do anything with your lodge during that time around the education, or what was happening there in that
So,
space?
well, yeah, so there was a couple times I did do some education, as always. I even, when I was worshipful master, I did something where I had a guy I had brought in. His name was Pierre Manning, awesome dude. He actually sang opera, and
Wow.
I had him open up, because there's a in the lodge, in the ritual, there's where the chaplain does his prayer, but then there's a time where you can actually sing a selection after you do that prayer. So I had him open up, and some of them guys had never even felt or witnessed something like that. And then that kind of led me into my lecture when we talk about music and geometry. I was telling them, I was like, there was a time when there was a piano in the lodge, and there was a time where that particular music was something that would bring everybody's mind in and cause us to think a certain way, a different way, or what we would call frequency on the same level of thinking or that
Yeah.
level. So by me having somebody come in there and sing opera that day, it kind of it pushed the envelope, man. It was something these guys had never really witnessed or experienced before,
Mm.
and it was great. And I did the lecture on frequencies that day, and talking about how the circumambulation, the reason it is the way it is, if you look at the Bhagavad Gita and you look at the Indian religion, they believe that going counterclockwise is how you divest. Watch my words very carefully. Divest yourself of impurities and things that are negative to cause you to make bad choices.
Mm.
So, what they say is to put something in the center of a room, a focal point, if you will. And if you circumambulate that and meditate on what you want to happen or want to do, and you do it after so many times, you will begin to change your mind's eye to see that thing and it will manifest.
Mm.
Now, a lot of times we talk about how does that relate to the lodge? Well,
Mm.
you circumambulate. How do you
Everybody had to see
circumambulate,
that.
right?
Everybody
And
had
what
to
does
see
it
that.
say? It
Yeah,
says
yeah,
to
yeah.
divest yourself of all what? Metallic
Yeah,
substances,
yeah.
right? All right. So after you deposit this to the lodge and the archive so that we can look back at them before, you see how that transition. But you also have to understand is that the amalgamation of different concepts and spiritual practices are in our ritual, but
Mm-hmm.
we don't actually see it or examine or know it because we don't learn outside of what we know.
Yeah.
And so if we stretch ourselves, you begin to see that juxtaposition of that's why we do that. Ah,
Mm.
I get
Uh-huh.
it.
Yeah, you get some of the
And it's
whys.
in there now, so it
Mm-hmm.
kind of overlaps. So
Love it.
so that was, one of those things I taught in the lodge at that time. Um, and
And let me
again,
ask you a
these are some
question. So let me ask you a
uh
question. So how was the actual before you became worship master? I'm pretty sure. What was the lodge education like before you became worship? I know you did your different type of thing, but were there basic information? I mean, like coming, or you just really brought forth more
uh,
than what it was?
well, I'm gonna tread carefully when I say this because I don't
Yeah, yeah.
when we come into the lodge sometimes we used to an old school mindset, just stick
Okay.
to the ritual.
Okay.
It is what it is. You want to teach on the movable and immovable, you know what I'm saying? Teach
Oh, but
on
but I understand that.
charcoal.
But there
Yeah, you know
was
what I'm
some
saying?
education going
Charcoal and
on
clay.
though. There was
Yeah, yeah,
education going because some lodges barely got
yeah.
any, if any, education at all.
Oh
So you did have
no.
some type of foundation of education in the lodge, but you just took it to
Mhm.
another way and another understanding of it, which is great.
Oh yeah.
Which is great. All
Oh
right,
yeah.
Yeah.
cool,
Oh
cool,
yeah.
cool.
Let
Yeah. Yeah.
let me go back in time too, and just for the sake of the archives and keeping the history alive too. If you are able to remember, the brother who brought you into the craft, who was the where'd you get your petition from? And also, do you remember the worshipful master when you were raised as a master mason, or and even the grand master at the time, if you remember, just for history?
I do. That's great. So when I came in, the most versatile past grandmaster, the late Lee A. Taylor, he just passed last year.
Mm,
He was the current sitting grandmaster at the time, and the worshipful master when I came in was Andre Clark, past master Andre Clark. Great guy, young guy, young dude. We're about the same age. He went to Morehouse, had a great footing in the history of masonry and the teachings and things like that. So he kind of took me under his wing and kind of like grafted me and something like that. And I remember he had told me, it's like, you got to really take this ritual because we would kind of come to his house and he was teaching us how to memorize certain things, if it be the charge or the lecture or the obligation before we would get to the obligation. And he would say, you need to read this every time you get a moment free. Like it don't matter where you are. This needs to be in your hand.
Mm-hmm.
hmm
And I really didn't take it that serious, but it's like you have to because it wasn't just memorizing, it was learning it and adapting and absorbing it. And that's what I did. Like every chance I had. Like if it wasn't downtime, if it wasn't instead of watching TV at the time, I was in there. I was absorbing. And and I remember this and I'll tell you this story, some things that happened in my life, and I kind of like, like I said, between 2016 and 2019, You know, I was going through the lodge and I was going through some changes in my life, and I had been not as active as I should have been. So I wasn't as serious, you know.
Mm.
And there was a meeting at the Grand Lodge. So, you know, I kind of figured, I said, well, I had a free Saturday. I said, I'll go up here and see what's going on. I hadn't been in a while. And I had forgot the third degree password. Like literally, I just drew a blank, bro. I ain't gonna lie. Like if I tell anybody, then everybody's gonna know this story now. But I told everybody the story, like, no. I was like, yeah, I forgot the password. Like, whatever. So I went, and the guy, the Tyler at the door asked me, and it was a good friend of mine, brother Jason Glenn. Asked me, he said, what's the password? I said, I got it. So I had to call, I had to phone in help. I had to phone in my line brother, my line brother Eric Roberts, past man, he's past master as well. I said, man, he's like, bro, you
Help.
killing me.
Bro.
I said, yo, man. He said, and he laughed at me. He said, well, maybe if you come to a meeting, you would know. but after that day, that's when I got myself back together. I did.
Mm.
I was so guilty and shamed. I was like, nah, I'm not gonna go there again. That was embarrassing.
Mm.
So
Mm.
yeah, I was on it, man. And I was so passionate about learning that ritual that I wasn't gonna let up. So
Hmm.
yeah.
Was the Worshipful Master your practitioner? Was he the one that brought you? Was he
Sponsor.
your sponsor?
Yeah. Andre
Okay.
Clark was my voucher.
Andre.
He signed
Okay.
everything, got me on there. So yeah.
Got you.
It's also one of those things that you probably needed that lesson. That's why it happened. You know,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
for that, you might not be where you're sitting at right now. They might not got you
That
serious
is
again.
true.
You know
Right. Right.
what I mean?
One other question before we get into our sort of our next standard question is when you were sitting in the West as a senior warden, can you just talk
Mhm.
about how you were thinking about Worshipful Master? Because I don't know if you were thinking about, hey, I got one more year and then I'm Worshipful Master, or like what was going through your mind as senior warden? Just in case we got a junior warden or senior warden that's listening to you right now, was there anything going through your mind during that time?
Um, I would say the biggest thing was I was nervous more than anything because I didn't know what to expect. Even though I could see what the worshipful master, I could see we go through the ritual. I didn't know what to expect when I was going to be the worshipful master. And the biggest thing was I didn't think I had enough time in the lodge to be a worshipful master, even though I went to the lodge of instruction. That was my own um, self-evaluation of my own capacity, and I was honest with myself. But if anybody is listening to this as a junior warden, I would tell you you have to start early, learning those three positions. Learn the South, learn the West, learn it before you get to the East. Because if you don't learn those positions early on and the gravity and the importance, you won't understand what it is to be in the East, and then you won't know what it means to support the East. Because when you work those positions well, you will see what it takes to make sure that the worshipful master is successful. Um, and I always tell guys, because unfortunately in the Blue Lodge, it's one of those things where we can be isolated, and sometimes people will just only focus on the East and they'll only do things until they
Mm-hmm.
get in the East.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we need to change that mentality. I think if we do things early on, and I would even go back as far as junior deacon, and like work your way through the seats and learn them. Because when you get there to the East, you have to do two things. You gotta raise them and you gotta bury them. And you have to know how to do that. And raising, in my opinion, is not just bringing them into the third degree. I I make it akin to actually being a father, a beacon of light to your brothers, to actually help them, and not just be in the East as a leader, but a brother and a father figure. And you're actually almost raising men to be better than they were the day before. So if you don't start establishing that as a junior or senior warden, you're gonna have a very, very, very big lift if you care when you become a worshipful master. My first lecture as worshipful master, when I came in, was actually on the words worshipful master. What did it mean to be a worshipful master? What does that mean? I was a youth pastor, raised in church, like the armor bearer for a couple bishops, Pentecostal Assemblies of the World. I was raised in church. Like my parents would drive to Connecticut every weekend, raised in church. From Maryland. So I was a pastor sometimes. So I took that to be the same thing because you lecture, you support, you pray for, you minister to, you help out, you even try to encourage, you try to give people the ability to lead and learn on their own so that they can be prepared. And so the biggest thing is that's why I always can go back to your question. If you don't do it as a junior and senior warden, and that is the biggest help for the worshipful master, you're gonna have a lot to lift. Because not only are you teaching yourself what it takes to be a worshipful master before you get there, but you're also showing the brothers in your lodge the support system that hopefully you will get when you get there, because they see you do that. And then hopefully you show by example. So they're like, oh, you know what? He did a lot of work. Let's put this program together for him, or let's help him out, or let's do this, or I'll be on that committee. Because now they begin to see how you care for the lodge. And then they're gonna fill in and do the same thing for you, or at least you hope. And you're not the only man rowing the boat. So
Yeah.
so that's that thing. That's why I say get it early and learn it when you're in those seats, and don't wait till you get in the east.
Yeah. So if you were going through like that sort of internal turmoil around, I don't think I'm ready. I don't think I've been in here long enough, but I'm senior warden right now, and I know I might be worshipful master next year. Like, what's one thing that you were doing, one thing you did as senior warden that you can remember
Um,
in preparation?
um, So as senior warden, one of the biggest things I did was I started to actually go to a lot of the grazing. So I actually started to work with the grand lecture staff.
Mm,
And I wasn't even, I was just trying to learn and see the degree work.
got you.
Um, I actually would show up, I would ask questions, I would get engaged. I would even show up to some of the visitations, visit other lodges. That was a big thing too. Don't just stay in your one lodge. Get out there, get your face out there, meet other brothers.
Mhm.
Um, that was a big thing for me because it was a big stretch for me because I
Mm,
was so nervous that I wasn't going to do well. I don't know how, and I don't know about anybody else, but I don't perform well in front of the people.
mm,
So what's best for me is to kind of build that camaraderie
mm.
and travel,
Yeah.
and then you learn so much and now you get comfortable. So now when you up there having to recite something, you're familiar faces now because you
Right.
fellowship. You know what I'm saying? You start to dwell well. So you don't worry about missing a the, or and, or was. It's now it's a fellowship thing, and they're helping you. So yeah, that was the biggest thing that helped me out, and it stretched me because I'm an introvert, so I had to push myself to be an extrovert in a very social space. And so I had to really squeeze myself out of that. And that's what kind of prepared me for that East position.
Nice, nice. That's definitely a good way to look at it. One of the foundational questions we have on this show is, especially around the point that you have been leading in the past, currently in many leadership positions. What do you see as effective leadership?
So effective leadership is, I always look at it as how do you cause impact and how do you create legacy? It's impact and legacy. Those are the two biggest things when
Mm,
we talk about organizational leadership. Organizational leadership is it takes emotional intelligence, it takes an EQ and an IQ, it takes a lot of patience, but can you actually see something in someone else that they don't see in themselves and help them bring it out? Can you
Mm,
empower someone to do something that they would never think they would ever do. That to me is effective because now you're causing change, excuse me, to someone else's mindset. And hopefully it will cause a ripple effect, an impact with other members of the lodge. And that to me is more effective than anything else. Because as you all know, when you come into a space where you've got a little bit what I like to call ageism, and I always say my quote is ageism, it never gets old, to coin the pun. But you're coming in as this, perky, bouncy, full of energetic 30-year-old, and it's like, hey, calm down, bro. But you got to give him something to do. He may have some value to add. You just didn't give him, and then if you don't, they disappear. So you gotta give them something to do. If it's something like, let them do a 2-second or 2-minute lecture on something, or let them start an initiative, or let them establish social media. You know, uh, one of the greatest lectures I heard was by the current sitting Grand Master for the District of Columbia. Um, and he did such a great lecture. He talked about the different age groups and time. Because if you think about masonry, excuse me, what has happened is we got to think about it. There was a time when there was no telephone, right? So think about it when somebody said, well, we need to send out a communication. The young guy says, well, we got a phone. Well, why don't we call him? Past master gets up and says, we don't use the phone in here. We don't do that. Now, how do you change that mindset? How do you do that? Well, you have to meet them where they are. Because that particular brother is used to, like my father was, if you don't come to my house and see me and look me in my eyes and tell me what you want to tell me, I'm not answering nothing. And that's the different mindset of a different time frame. As opposed to now, you got some of these kids, if you don't DM them, or I don't know what else they got going on, Snapchatting and sliding and all the other stuff, they ain't hearing nothing you talking about. So it's just the different ways of thinking and the different ways of communication, but you have to adapt to that to get everybody on the same way. So that part of effective leadership is knowing your audience, knowing the different ways that people communicate, and being able to adapt to that to bring everybody together to hopefully achieve a common purpose. And if you can do that as a leader, man, you have gone leaps and beyond than anything else, because that is a big feat to overcome.
Definitely. I have heard another lecture. Well, actually, it was on a podcast, Ex Oriente. You pull it up anytime. He did a 3-part series on the different generations that was in Freemasonry at the time. So it goes back. I think he even went back to the silent generation. They was like the last ones at that point. Still, a couple of them still around, baby boomers, and he pointed out all those different things sort of to know that and how we can work together and things like that. So, brothers, if you want to look into that, that's one place you can find it. Because I know I don't know about our Grand Master's lecture that you can't pull it up, but I know you can go pull up Ex Oriente, or you got to do look that up online and you'll find that. So that may could be something similar to that can help you out with that point.
Absolutely. Speaking of communication methods, like, subscribe to the channel, everyone that's listening right now. Make sure you share the episode, like, subscribe for sure. Um, Past Master Vaughans, you talked about impact and legacy. So I'm curious now, during COVID, as Worshipful Master, as the leader of the lodge, what would you consider to be like your impact or legacy on your lodge as Worshipful Master?
So one of the biggest things I challenged everyone, and when we started to kind of start do things online, the way I did things was just a little bit differently. I tried to engage all the different age groups, and then we still were doing a little bit of the donations and things like that. So we still were doing things where we were giving to the community in some way, whether it be funds or whether it be doing COVID kits, or donating to something like that. We found ways to do things in that way as well. One of the biggest things was, and I used to host things at my house too. So we would
Mm,
have in a safe space, just have some of the guys just come on over, safe space. It wasn't a lot of guys. Everybody, was inoculated well, we were all
Mm.
masked up, but it was something to kind of build that camaraderie because we were so isolated, just trying to build that up as well. And we also did, when we did start to meet back up again, we were meeting at Dave and Buster's a couple times
oh
too,
well.
just to do stuff off the chart, no matter the age group. I even had the district deputy grandmaster there at that time. And it was great because nobody was doing it. It was just, I didn't say nobody, but it wasn't a lot of people doing that because sometimes the young guys are afraid of the older guys. And the older guys have a lot of wisdom. Um, and I try to tell those young guys, you better, start talking to these guys because they haven't written it all down. It's not binding in a book. You got to
Hmm.
get it in your head. There's a lot of knowledge to get in your head. Spend some time with them, ask them a lot of questions, absorb. So that to me was a great impact. And I loved it. I appreciated it. Um, we took some things from it. The following past master, he applied it to his tenure as well.
Mm,
So that was one of those things where you kind of like take the baton and kind of keep it going, which was a great experience.
yeah. How many members are in your lodge or were in your lodge during the time of you being worshipful master, roughly?
Um, at the time when I came in, we were well on the books. On the books,
Mm.
we had 48 members on the
40.
on the
Okay.
roll.
Okay.
Mm. Mm.
Now Samuel J. Ennis Lodge, a lot of people don't know. Samuel J. Ennis was one of the original founders of the colored school in Havre de Grace, Maryland. His gravesite is over in Havre de Grace, Maryland. He had a school named after him,
Mm,
and he's over there. And he comes from a very long lineage of individuals. One of our past masters, past master Mickey Shelton, he was the original signer on the charter. So when we were originally chartered, they started that, it got everything going through, and I believe it was Samuel T. Daniels that signed that charter for us. Excuse me. So we had great heritage in San Joaquin. It was great, and I say we have because unfortunately, just through some of the demitting, and we had a lot of deaths in our lodge. And as you guys know, that's one of the heartaches or heartbreaking issues in a lot of our lodges is that people were kind of like diminishing coming back. So we were starting to lose revenue. So we had to dissolve
mm,
our lodge, and that's why I'm a part of my Olive Lodge now, number 25.
Mm.
But yeah, so we were about 48 on the books, and then on a good given night of opening up, we probably had like about 10 people there to open up.
mm,
So
got it.
Let me ask you a question going along with that. So how old was your lodge around that time? Around, mm, I'm
2016,
mm,
we were chartered, I want to say in 1923.
okay.
So we've been around for a while.
Wow.
We've been around
Yeah,
for a
yeah.
while. And if you look through some of the archives, we have a library now in our Grand Lodge.
Mm.
You can see the years. And you guys know back in the 30s and 40s, there
Everybody was
weren't as many
popping.
distractions. So everybody was
Yeah,
showing up to Grand Lodge
yeah, of course. Yeah,
Lodge
yeah.
meetings,
Your means, yeah, exactly.
Right.
So, and then also keep in mind the dues was probably like dollar, 10 cent, $2.
Yeah.
It wasn't
Heard
heavy
that
now.
heard that Maryland real hard. Dude.
It
um
ain't, it ain't,
yeah,
so Lodge dues are the buyers club now. But
yeah.
it's it's it was just one of those things where things have just transitioned. So, but
Mm.
yeah, we 1923, so we've been around for a while.
Now, I kind of asked that question because I'm seeing, just thinking about it, I see other lodges is going through the same struggles and things like that. And I want brothers to keep in mind that, I mean, all lodges have ebbs and flows, but that could be a lodge at the same time. There were probably some points, like way before you came in, that they might have caught these fires that
Mm,
stopped them from going down that path. So we need to learn those lessons so that we can keep our lodges going. That's why I just wanted to bring that little point
Oh
out.
yeah, oh
Yeah,
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 sure.
yeah,
oh yeah,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah. I
Mm-hmm.
would I would say I would press upon all the guys who. Yep. So you always hear the same complaint. Oh, they don't do nothing but talk about business and fish fries and blah, 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 blah. The lodge is what you make it. And if you see a need, fill it. Don't complain about it not being there. That was the biggest thing that when you remember when we first started Esoteric Lighthouse, we had these conversations all the time. And we used to tell these young guys coming in, hey, don't bring all that noise over here. Because I'm gonna tell you right now, if you were doing what you were supposed to be doing as a Mason in your lodge, it wouldn't be a problem. And if all you had to do is raise your hand and get people, you know what I'm saying? Just get people to say, hey, I think that maybe we should, or have we ever thought about this? Put it together and make it happen. You got people who have virtual lodges now. I mean, you have people who have esoteric cons and all type of stuff. Is because somebody had an idea and made it happen. If you don't want to have a fish fry anymore, come up with a better idea. I don't know. Like, don't complain about it. Bring something to the table that makes the change happen. Also, one of the other complaints we used to always hear, oh, there's nothing for the families. Well, it makes something for the family. It's not needed to have a family day picnic in the middle of the summer. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just things like that. I just never understood, and I just thought that people were just looking for an excuse to say no, instead of actually doing something to make it better, to actually get more families involved. So,
Exactly. I mean, just to your point as far as bringing the families in, but it's something you mentioned, and Hamsley mentioned the same thing about, I mean, everybody don't have the space or whatever, but Bum Brothers do, how they welcome people into their homes. And Hansley last week, he was talking about how brothers used to go from house to house, things like that. It's more of an old school mentality. And speaking about what you're saying, it's something, a quote that I found recently over the last couple of days from Carl Jung. It says, we cannot change anything until we accept it. So you got to accept the situation. Condemnation does not liberate, it oppresses.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
just keep that in mind, brothers. Don't worry about all that complaining. All you're doing is hurting.
I'm
Try to
telling you.
find the littlest thing, like you mentioned, and then make that little change. All y'all do is little changes, and it'll be much better.
One of my biggest pet peeves is somebody coming up with a solution and not willing to make it happen. So it's like guys and brothers and people, whether they're in the craft or not, they'll complain about something, won't come with a solution, but if they come with an idea, won't be willing to actually help implement the idea. I'm like, what are we talking about right now? Like if you like, great, help us implement it or bring it to life. Or somebody will complain and not even try to come up with an idea to bring a solution to the table. I'm like, don't even talk to me unless you got a solution. So it's like, don't like solutions. The only thing I want to talk about right now. I don't want to hear about no complaining. Let's remove that from the energy right now. No more complaining. All I want to hear is solutions, and let's talk through how we can grow, not about how we get stuck in the past. So I appreciate the words that you said, past Master Vaughans, in terms of make it happen. Come up with an idea and make it happen.
That's right.
So yeah, we
That's right.
can complain about what ain't happening, what shoulda, coulda, woulda. We could use that same energy on, yeah, how might we be able to? What would it look like if we did this together? Those sort of things. I want to have those conversations. So
Yeah,
thank
That's
you for
right.
bringing that.
yeah, definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. Past Master Vaughns, we definitely also like to bring out all the brothers that have had an impact in your life that brothers may not know. Say some of those names that was an influence on you in the craft.
Okay. Well, it's not a long list, but it's a very definitive one. I would say, like I said, past Master Andre Clark, my voucher, my worshipful master when I came in. Um, I had to also mention my Lion brothers. Got to do my, past Master Eric Roberts, senior warden, Eric Trotter, Naheem Trotter, excuse me. Um, and I would say over the years, I've met some really great guys. Past master Kevin E. Cosby Sr. He's kind of mentored me over the years, helped me with my Masonic career here and out. Since I've been active in the Grand Lodge heavily, um, It's a lot of great guys that I've ran into over time, and all these other orgs that I work into. Past Master Kevin A. Dixon Jr., another really great mentor. We almost talk like every day because now he's my IDO, which is Imperial Deputy Oasis in
Okay.
the Ancient Egyptian Arabic World Knowledge Shrine. So these guys I just never get away from. So they're in every org now, man. So and then when we get into, like the Scottish Rite, I met some really great guys. I mean, and I'm not trying to drop names because I know you guys, but the Grand Secretary, himself, Ken Collins,
Ken Collins,
he's a
yeah.
really great guy. We know him. Everybody
Mhm.
knows him.
Mhm.
Great heart, great personality. He's a good mentor as well. Um, and I've met some great leaders too. Past Master Noel C. Osborne. He was the previous
Okay, yeah.
past Grandmaster.
Yeah, I met him a few times. Yeah.
Yeah, yep. And some of these guys have been, instrumental in kind of showing me some things, showing, giving me opportunity, things like that. And I don't take it, I don't take none of it for granted, man. I tell you right now, I think it was Anthony Mackie, the guy who just did Captain America. He was on a
Mhm.
podcast,
Mhm.
something similar like this, and he tell him success is not earned, is given, because he said you can work hard. I mean, yeah, that's
Yeah.
just part of the equation. But when somebody sees you and they like you,
Mm-hmm.
that's pretty much it. It's done. And then just say that guy right there, him, you, come here. And once that happens, it's just like if you stay in that same vein of doing what you were doing when you got there, everything's just gonna start falling in place. Because
So
then they'll
place
start to
yourself in a
put you in
proper position to
places.
receive.
There you go. There you go. There you go. There
Mhm.
you go. And as you can
Mhm.
see, those same principles
Mhm.
always apply. You know what
Mhm.
I'm saying? It's applicable no matter what we talk about.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's things like that that I don't again I count it not, a loss, but a gain. And it's been great, man. It has been a great ride. I feel like I'm still on cloud nine most times. Because I'm gonna tell you guys, I'm gonna be real honest. I would have never thought I'd be in the position I am right now in Grand Lodge at all.
Mhm.
It's big. If I
Mhm.
talk to myself, if I was to write a letter to
Mhm.
myself in
Mhm.
2016, I tell myself, get your act together because you got a lot to do sitting here.
Mhm.
So it's been great. It's been
Mhm.
great.
Well,
Yeah.
speaking of getting yourself together, you are, like I said, pretty busy man, business owner. You have a big family. How do you juggle those things and still stay effective?
Well, I think the biggest thing is to, communicate. Like I keep everybody involved. I keep everybody in my schedule. I keep, everybody's engaged. They help me out. I try to include everybody because if I isolate, then I will push people away and then it becomes complicated. So whatever there may be, whether it be, whether it be cooking, doing chores around the house, or helping with the business, or picking up the slack here, or I can't do this because I have to be gone for a week. Can somebody do this? Take that. That help group mentality that everybody has here is what helps me succeed in what I do. And because we over communicate with each other, and then even so much where I even have to take time away from everything just to, and no matter what it is, if it be a day or two or, or a week, you have to make that time because if you don't, people will start to feel neglected. Um, and as I always tell people, we don't get paid to do masonry. We paid to do masonry,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
and I'm not trying to waste my money. So
Exactly.
you know what I'm saying? So with that being said, I gotta have some balance. I gotta be fair to everything else. So, make sure home is good. I gotta make sure money's coming in. Let's be
Mhm.
honest.
Of course.
So the business is not bad. Despite all the stuff that's going on in the world right now,
Mm-hmm.
it's always blessed, highly favored. But it's just one of those things where I even have to find time to hone my own skills for my craft to make sure that I'm successful. Because here's my thing, and I want everybody to understand this that's listening. You can be the greatest Mason in the world, but you can't be an impactful Mason if you're not being the greatest person in the world. You
Mm.
have to get out there and do things. And you can't do it by being in the lodge all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You got to get out there. There's so much to do and impact. And that's how being a Mason makes us grow. Because imagine if I know some of you guys probably in tech, you guys are probably, you used to going to a lot of conferences and stuff like that. When you have someone that's in the craft and you know somebody that's doing an impact in AI or doing some cutting edge stuff in the government space or whatever, and they're like, "Hey man, I got this conference. You want to come?" Boom, 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 boom. There's the community and connection happening now, and now
Mm-hmm.
we can start our own Masonic tech breakfast now because now you got ideas and coming together, and we can build an app or we can build a
Right.
platform, we can build a business. That's what we really should be doing. And that's how we make people better because now I'm giving you an opportunity to hopefully feed you and your family for the longevity because now we're learning from each other. And now we can impact others. And then we can bring it back to the lodge. And now we can change it from a fish fry to something different, to a conference. Because
Mm.
now I've changed the way we're thinking and we're doing
That's
now.
it.
So
So,
you know what I'm saying? So that's the
mm-hmm.
type of thing we do. So
So you got me on my stuff right now. And I just said this, me and Mark, we have our texts, going back and forth, and he'll
Mm.
bless me with a question of the day. I'll bless him. Now I'm starting to ask him some questions. And one of the questions most recently was if masonry, I'm gonna say Prince Hall masonry, was his own country, what would be his major export? What would be his primary export? Like
wow. That's
what do we offer the world that we can actually commercialize? If we had our own GDP, will we have a deficit? Will we run from a deficit where we're importing and not able to export? I know we talked about it. I said, don't say our major export is as fish fries, because that ain't it. That ain't it.
Look, my answer to him was it was community service, right? Even though I mean that's all good and great, but that ain't what Freemasonry really is about. You know, that ain't the main
Right.
focus of Freemasonry. You know what I mean? But
So
right.
we
that's
don't
what
need
we
to
got
answer
right
that
now.
now, but
Yeah,
that's just something.
yeah,
Those
something
are
to
the
think
type of
about.
conversations
Yeah.
that we need to get to. Like instead of like coordinating, I think multiple things could be true. We could have the cigar nights. I love me a good cigar and some cognac. We can go have the dances and
Yeah.
parties, but then we could also have these think tanks and we can have these conversations around moving us to another level because this world is changing rapidly. And by 2030, we're gonna wake up and say, man, we ain't had all these fish fries, but AI and took everybody's job,
Yeah.
and we ain't,
That was the other thing that you
what are
brought
we
up.
doing?
Because that was another question that Matt brought up about using AI in masonry.
Like,
He
what are
just
we
brought that
doing?
another question of the day too. So
So, it's a lot of
I
opportunities. I
mean,
love how you're thinking, Brother Vaughn,
yeah.
Pastor Vaughn.
yeah. I mean, let me posture this.
Mm,
If you turn it in such a way and you look at it as how do we impact each other so that the product which we produce
mm,
replicates itself. If you
Mm,
think about when we talk about how we come together, see, here's the thing. Most of the time, when you need something and you go into any venue in masonry, you say, anybody know a roofer? A brother is a roofer? Or anybody know somebody that work on cars? We always ask the same question, right?
mm,
So it's that access to data.
mm,
But what if we was to create something at our fingertips that amongst ourselves, no matter where we are in the world, you knew that there's a list of brothers that know how to do what you're looking to get done.
mm,
And then what if we were to take that? Because now more than ever, we are going to have to start doing for ourselves. Because what we used to have or thought we had is being taken away
mm,
slowly to where we're going to have to start going back to the way we were doing for ourselves before. And then now we're going to have to start doing resource management. I was
mm,
telling somebody the other day, what if right now we were all cut off because of just the sheer color of our skin. We couldn't do this and couldn't do that and couldn't do that, whatever. We're back into the 1940s. What would we do? What would we do? We have to put ourselves in a place where we can communicate with each other and say, hey, I know how to farm, or I know how to make clothes, or I know how to make shoes, or you know what? I know I have a store owner over here, or I know a nice resort that's owned by a Black person over here. That's the type of communication we need to start having with each other, because we're going to have to start looking and building for us, because I I hate to say it, but these are the types of conversations we have to start having, because if we don't, it's going to come as a shock, and then we're going to kind of be like looking at each other like, what are we going to do? And then it's like, well, we've been in these organizations paying these dues, and we don't even know nobody that knows what we need to do. Like,
We know who can
where's
make a fish fry. We know
Now,
somebody who know how to
now,
make a fish fry.
now
it's
I'm gonna
like,
relate this
right,
back,
right.
kind of back to the lodge.
These are all jokes, folks. These are jokes,
Yeah.
folks. These are just
I'm
jokes.
gonna
No,
relate
man.
this back to the lodge in a second, because I mean, for a second, because it's similar to what I mentioned before about just being prepared ahead and learning the lessons from before and not letting the lodge fall. So that's why I say that the lodge is supposed to be practice for the real world. So
Mm-hmm.
we've seen these type of things in the lodge. Don't let it happen in the real world. Get prepared
Mm-hmm.
That's
for
right.
the future.
That's right. That's right.
Stay
You
ready.
know,
That's
Stay
right.
so
ready.
this
That's
one
right.
is really on point.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we had one lodge that was doing they was giving out CCWs, concealed carry permits,
Mm,
teaching people how to use the gun. And it
mm.
wasn't about the gun, it was about the safety
Yeah, exactly.
and
Mm,
comfortable having it.
mm,
We had one lodge that was doing a fishing trip.
mm.
Mm-hmm.
We got one lodge that did a brotherly retreat. They do a retreat once a year. It's King David Lodge. And they're one of the oldest lodges in Maryland. They do a once the end of the year retreat with all the brothers. Just go off and just, bond like men for a couple days.
Mm-hmm.
I
It's
do.
stuff like
I can't say from what I've seen within Maryland, within social media and different things, y'all do have a lot of things going on that are progressive and advancing in different ways.
yeah,
So I
yeah,
definitely look up to y'all in those type of things. Like in 2020, I seen y'all on the streets, with the protesting and stuff like that, and
Mm-hmm.
different type of
yeah,
things. So, you know,
yeah,
I like
Yeah.
that. I like the
yeah.
mindset coming out of Maryland, definitely.
So I do want
Yeah.
to ask a couple questions. I know we're getting on our time right now, but I do a couple things. One is I gotta give a huge shout out to our junior warden, Paula Dale Jr. of Eureka Lodge number 36 and past master, right worshipful, Michael A. Nix. They started a gun club association called RAFA in Rochester. It's the Rochester African American Firearms Association. So brothers of our lodge got together and created a firearms association. They're doing fantastic work in the community in Rochester. They did a Stop the Bleed campaign, a program where they help with tourniquets and helping people in those sort of situations where somebody might be bleeding out. How do you save people's lives? So shout out to RAFA, Rochester African American Firearms Association in Rochester. And Past Master Vaughans, what's the name of your business? Just put a spotlight on that real fast.
Oh, no problem, no problem. So my business is Riva, RIVA, IT Consulting
Okay.
Incorporated. So if you go to rivaitconsulting.org, you can check us out. We do staff augmentation, data analytics, and we do a lot of websites. We do digital strategy. And so right now we've got a couple contracts with the government. We're doing some big things. Right now, we're trying to get another contract with USPTO. I just had a call today, so God is blessing in the midst of
Amen.
everything that's changing. So yeah, we're on the
Excellent.
move.
Can you spell that website out real fast for us?
So it's RIVAIT
R
Consulting,
I R
CON,
I V A I T. Okay.
consulting.org. Yep.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Last question for the night before we wrap up. Is we know you're busy. We know you're a busy man. You got a lot going on. Um, and you probably aren't thinking like about this. But if you were, imagine a time where if you were to go back, and let's just say even from Mount Olive, because we know that the lodge you were raised in, Samuel Enos, is no longer active or chartered. If you were to go back into the East as worshipful master in the year 2026, knowing what you know about yourself, Mount Olive Lodge, and the craft or leadership, what would be one thing that you would focus on as worshipful master in the year 2026?
Oof. I would say ritualistic work. I can't get away from it. I think that's where we're faulting. We, and I say we as Masons, have veered off from the ritualistic work. And I'm not just saying just actually doing the degree work, but I'm saying teaching it.
Mm,
Um, Bringing the brothers through the degrees, but then having them learn what the words mean, because it has become a cognitive dissonance or disassociation from the truth, because we can repeat something, but I don't think we're actually applying it. And I think that's where some of the discontent and the disconnect is coming within the craft. And
mm,
some of the disheartening news that we hear every day is because we've just forgotten some of the basic tenets of Freemason.
mm,
It's not about a title or a collar. It's not about a position. It's definitely not about what we are doing for each other per se, but I think it's about, we forgot that we're about God,
mm,
God, community, and then us. And I think when we get back to those tenets of brotherly love, relief, and truth, we will begin to examine how those tenets apply to today's application. And then it would lead us to those eye-opening ideas that we can apply to the 21st century. But until we get back to that, the ritual will never lead us wrong.
mm.
But it can lead us right if we just get back to it. So I say back to the basics is the key.
Love that. Love it. Love it. Love it.
Thanks,
All
man.
right. Like, subscribe to the channel, folks. Like, subscribe to the channel. This is
Pat,
a fantastic, fantastic. Thank you, past Master Vaughans.
yes, thank you,
Thank you.
Pastor Master Vaughns, for your words and being a guest today. You have definitely gave us something to think about and to take back to our lodges, chapters, and into ourselves to see how we can better ourselves. Um, Things such as when it comes to learning the ritual, it's not just about learning, memorizing it. It's about learning it and absorbing it so that you can bring the stuff out of you that's within you. Start learning your positions as early as possible so you can truly understand them. So as you learn it on the spot, you won't be able to really get into it and understand what you're doing. Visiting is important to your growth as a Mason, so you can see things from different
Mm,
perspectives. It helps you grow. When it comes to being an effective leader, um, emotional intelligence is important, and intelligence is important, and patience is important. Seeing seeing things in others and helping bring them out. If you can do that, then you could definitely advance your lodge by bounds. I always say, try to find the good in others
mm,
instead rather than searching for the bad. Being able to adapt, not being able just to stand still, be able to make that quick turn and things like that. That's always important. And it comes to with our families and balancing it out. Communication is key to keeping the life balance. I did, remember when I was working real busy, I would have a little calendar and on the refrigerator and all my meetings on there. So
mm,
yeah, communicating is always important. So everybody
mm,
knows what's going on and making them feel valued by telling them what's going on. So that's important, definitely from that. And you have to take the time to step away and step back. Lodge ain't going nowhere. Take care of your family. Take that time for them.
Hey, that's right.
Exactly. And this one that I might not get in. Maybe you can say it better, but you can't be the greatest Mason. You can be the greatest Mason in the world, but you can't be the most impactful Mason if you don't step outside of Masonry. So
That's right.
definitely, brothers, keep that in mind. I love that one. I'm taking that one with me. So thank you again, Past Master Coney Vaughns, for those words. Appreciate you.
No problem.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you,
you
past
guys.
Master Vaughans. It's been a pleasure. Um, I certainly got some new energy right now just from our conversation right now. I'm hoping that we can have another conversation at a later date around leadership and around the craft, but also in the other spaces that we need to be thinking about. Not necessarily as much as esoteric or just things that just are important to us as men in the craft and how we need to be able to lead ourselves and our families and our community in the future because it's changing fast. It is changing every single day, and we just want to make sure we stay ready so we don't have to get ready at the last minute.
Indeed.
And so
Indeed.
thank you very much. Thank you very much. Anything last parting words before we wrap up?
Um, no, I think I've probably said enough. We're gonna talk to you guys so much. Yeah, I think this is great. Yeah, I would love to do this again. We gotta probably have you guys on the Esoteric Lighthouse now. So then we gotta have a little collaboration in the shows. This is
Mhm.
good. So this is great. But yeah, once again, thank you all. Thank you, everybody. I hope everybody enjoys the show. Again, thank you.
Definitely. Make sure you check out the Esoteric Lighthouse.
And
Search it on
find it on
YouTube.
YouTube. Yep.
Make sure
Mhm.
you check it out. Like, subscribe to the Esoteric Lighthouse. Show them a lot of love. I gotta go check it out myself to make sure I stay on top of my game. Mark gonna be hitting me with all these things, and I'm like, wait a minute, what we talking about here? Like, okay, now I gotta stay on par right now. Iron sharpens iron. So
That's
I
right.
appreciate that for sure. Thank you very much. So everybody, we know we always say the world needs leaders, and leadership starts with being able to lead yourself. It's impossible for you to lead other people if you cannot lead yourself. So please take the words you heard today from past Master Vaughn and through our conversation and apply them to yourself, to the craft if you are in the craft, or just in life if you are not in the craft. And until the next time, God bless you.